This is Algebra 2, Spring Test Number 13 Study Guide. We're writing these in logarithmic form. Remember, this is saying 3 to the third power is equal to 27. So you rewrite that as log base 3 of 27 is equal to 3. That's the logarithmic form. These tell you to evaluate log base 6 of 136, and it doesn't say equals whatever it is, but that's what you're trying to find. You're trying to find what do you have to raise this base to get it to be equal to 1 over 36. Remember, in order to make it into a fraction, it has to be a negative exponent. It has to be a negative exponent to make a fraction, and then to make the number 36, it has to be squared to make 6 times 6. So it'll be negative 2. This is saying log base 3 of 2187. So it's saying 3 to what power equals 2187. And when you raise 3 to the 7th power, 7, that gives you 2187. 3 times itself 7 times. We're adding or subtracting this one. I did this one earlier. In order to add and subtract fractions, you got to have the same denominator or the same bottom. Notice they both are the same, x minus 8. So you simply add what's going on across. It says negative 8x minus negative 4. Minus a negative means plus. So negative 8x plus 4 over x minus 8. And you could take a 4 out at the top. 4 times negative 2x plus 1 over x minus 8. That's all you can do with that one. Number 5, we simplify in these rational expressions. Take what they have in common. Take a 2 out of the top, x minus 3, over take a 2 out of the bottom, x plus 8. Notice it says 2 over 2. That's what you cancel out. So you're left with x minus 3 over x plus 8. 15x to the 5th over x to the 5th minus 5x to the 6th. You can't do anything yet with 15x to the 5th, but you can take x to the 5th out at the bottom. That gives you 1 times negative 5x, because x to the 1 plus 5 would be x to the 6th. So you can take out x to the 5th is divided by x to the 5th, so you're left with 15 over 1 minus 5x. You have to factor out these x, and x will give you x squared. And then what factors, what pair will get you to the number 18? That when you put them together, get you to number 9. But we know 6 and 3. When we put those two together, we get 18. This says the signs are the same. This said they both plus. So plus 6 plus 3. Do the same to the bottom. It's x times x to make x squared. The factors of 6, 1 and 6, 2 and 3. Which ones get you to 5? Well, 1 and 6 and 2 and 3 will get you to 5. But since this sign says they're both the same and they're both positive, you have to add the numbers up. So it has to be plus 2 plus 3. Because if you added 6 and 1, you would get 7. So then you just cancel out what they have in common on both the top and the bottom. X plus 3 over x plus 3 leaves you with x plus 6 over x plus 2. Okay, this says to multiply. These right here, cancel out what they have in common on both the top and the bottom if you can. Don't see anything right away that we can cancel out. But if we put them together, negative 5 times q plus 3. I'm sorry, negative 5q times q plus 3 over negative 4 times q minus 5. When we put those things together, we multiply negative 5q times q is negative 5q squared. Negative 5q times 3 is minus 15q. Over negative 4 times q is negative 4q. Negative 4 times negative 5 is plus 20. And there's not a whole lot we can do with this problem. This is one of those problems that you get stuck on it a little bit because you're not sure where to finish it up at, but that's all we're going to be able to do to that one. Notice the top of number 9 says y squared minus 25. That's the difference of two perfect squares, y squared and 25. So you'd rewrite that as y plus 5 times y minus 5. That's over 4y. The other one says negative 5y over y plus 5. So we see a couple things we can cancel out. We can cancel out y over y, and we can cancel out y plus 5 over y plus 5. So look and see what's on top still. You still have negative 5, you still have y minus 5, and you still have 4 on the bottom. And then 5 plus the square root of 10 squared. Remember, this is a binomial, so you have to write it as 5 plus the square root of 10 times 5 plus the square root of 10. So you wind up foiling this. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times the square root of 10 is plus 5 square root of 10. I'm going to have to put this underneath it a little bit. The inner terms are square root of 10 times 5 is again plus 5 square root of 10. And then the square root of 10 times the square root of 10 is going to be the square root of 100, which, remember, the shortcut is to just pull it out from under the radical. So put your terms together that you have that are the same. 25 and 10, you can put those two together and get 35. And then 5 square root of 10 plus 5 square root of 10 is 10 times the square root of 10. There's your simplified version. Number 11, you could pull an s out of the top. So you have s times s minus 3. Factor the bottom, s times s. Don't let your s's get confused with 5s. You need your factors of 12, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4, which number is going to get you to positive 1. That's your b value, positive 1. It's a negative 12, so you have to subtract the numbers. One's going to be positive, one negative, and you want to make a positive number. So you need 4 and 3 are your factors you're going to use. 4 and 3. Again, this one tells you that they're opposites. This one tells you the bigger one's plus. 4 is bigger, 3 is smaller, so it's minus. It says to divide. Remember, you can just right now, you can change this step and say that means multiply by the reciprocal. S plus 4 over S plus 5. Cancel out what you can. S minus 3 cancels out. S plus 4 cancels out. S is left on top. And S plus 5 is on the bottom. Rewrite this one in vertex form. It's not in vertex form because this is not a perfect, that's not a perfect square right there. So what you need to do is you need to remove that one. It says plus 13, so subtract it. If you do it there, do it on the left side as well. It leaves you with y minus 13 equals x squared minus 8x. And then what you need to do is put in plus, not with that one. You need to put in plus c. We need to find c. Well, in order to find c, you take the value of b, you divide it by 2, and then you square it. Remember, this says ax squared plus bx plus c. So your b value in this case is negative 8. Divide that by 2 and get negative 4 and square that and you get positive 16. So if you add 16 to the left, you have to, the right, you have to add 16 to the left. So y minus 13 plus 16 is going to give you y plus 3 on the left now when you put those two together. And then you want to separate the perfect trinomial on the right. In order to do that, you take the square root of the first term, the square root of x squared is x. And the square root of the third term, the square root of 16 is 4. This sign tells you that there's minus in the middle. So you have y plus 3 equals x minus 4, and you square that binomial. The only other thing you have to do to make vertex form is get y by itself by subtracting 3 to cancel out plus 3. Y equals x minus 4 squared minus 3. That's vertex form there. Number 13 has to simplify the product. Remember, multiply 2 times 6, you get 12. 8 to the 7 times 8 to the 5th, you add them up, you get 8 to the 12th. Do the same thing, 2 times negative 2, you get negative 4. It's a to the 7th, b to the 7th, so you can't add those up, you just get a to the 7th, b to the 7th. 14 says find the value of x, where we have an angle 20 here. We have an opposite side of 20, so that's O, and we have an adjacent side of 20, that's A. If you're doing SOHCAHTOA or SOHCAHTOA, however you pronounce it, the one that has both an O and an A is tangent. So you use the tangent of the angle you have 20 is equal to the opposite. It tells you the order right here, opposite, which is x, over the adjacent, which is 10. So in order to find x's value, that says divide by 10, you multiply by 10. Do it here as well. So it'll cancel this out and leave you with just x is what you were looking for. So you simply punch that in as 10 tangent 20 and press enter. 10 tangent 20, and you'll get, it's an approximation, we'll call it 3.6. So x's value is approximately 3.6. Same thing here, we're looking for x from 50, that's an adjacent side, and 6 is an opposite side. Again, we're using an adjacent and an opposite. Okay, so that's tangent again. So tangent of 50 equals the adjacent, which is, wait, it's not adjacent, it's TOA, T-O-A. That means opposite over adjacent. So tangent of 50 equals 6 over x, and this is why we were using cotangent and stuff. But this is probably an easier way for most of you to do it. To get x by itself, it says divide by x, so cancel that by multiplying by x. That leaves you with x tangent of 50 equals, these will cancel and leave you with 6. And then to get x by itself, one more step that says x times that, divide by the tangent of 50. Do the same here. And it'll cancel the left. X equals 6 divided by the tangent of 50, which is the same thing as finding the cotangent of it. So 6 divided by the tangent of 50 is 5.03. So your x value is going to be approximately, again, 5.03 or 5.0. Be good. Round it to the nearest tenth. 16 says a large totem pole in the state of Washington is 100 feet tall. At a particular time of day, it casts a 249-foot long shadow. Find the measure of A. Okay, so what we're looking for is an angle measurement here. You still want to use the trig functions you have. This is still opposite, and this is still adjacent. So you're still using the one that has an O and an A. If you use SOHCAHTOA again, the only one with an O and an A is the tangent. So tangent of angle A is equal to 100 feet divided by, because opposite over adjacent, 249. Okay, this is the case. Anytime you're looking for an angle measurement, which we are here, this is an angle we're looking for. This is when you use the inverse tangent. So you punch it to where it says tangent -1, the inverse. It's going to open up something that looks like this, tangent -1 like that, or raised to the -1. You simply punch in 100 divided by 249. When you do that, you get 21.9 degrees approximately. Angle A is approximately 21.9 degrees. Write the ratios of sine A and cosine A. Well, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So from A, its opposite is 35. So sine of A is 35 over the hypotenuse is the long one, 37. Cosine is adjacent, which is the one that's next to it, 12 over the hypotenuse, 37. Cosine and sine. Let's find the value of x, round to the nearest tenth. We have an opposite, and we got a hypotenuse. So we're using an O and an H, that's sine. Sine of 20 equals the opposite, 17, over the hypotenuse x. This is another one like a couple minutes ago, since x is at the bottom. This is where you'd want to use the cosecant. But since the cosecant confuses people, just get rid of divide by x by multiplying by x. Do it here. So x times sine 20 equals, that'll cancel and leave you with 17. Just do one more step and divide by the sine of 20 to get it back to the other side. Now you have x by itself. 17 divided by, you might have to close your parentheses right here, divided by the sine of 20. And you should get, I got a number 49. Let me check this real quick. Yeah, it came out to be the same. So we have x's value equals approximately, again, we're coming up with approximations, 49.7. 49 says round to the nearest tenth, 49.7 is the hypotenuse. Number 19 says Viola drives 170 meters up a hill. That makes an angle of 9 degrees with the horizontal. To the nearest tenth of a meter, what horizontal distance has she covered? So it says she goes 170 meters up a hill. So this one's 170 meters. It says this angle right here is 9 degrees. Not 90 degrees. 9 degrees. This one right here. Okay, so to the nearest tenth, what horizontal distance has she covered? So this one right here we're looking for. This is a 90-degree angle, so that's all we need. We have an adjacent. This right here is our adjacent side, and we got a hypotenuse. So the one that uses A and H is cosine. Cosine of 9 degrees equals the adjacent x over the hypotenuse 170. So this one's a little bit easier for most people. Get rid of divide by 170 by multiplying by it. Do it here as well. So you have 170 times the cosine of 9 degrees. And she went 167.9 meters was the horizontal distance she covered. It says find a value of x, round to the nearest tenth again. We got opposite over hypotenuse, O over H, sine. Sine of 22 equals the opposite over the hypotenuse. Again, so get rid of that by multiplying by 25. Do it here. So simply 25 sine 22. And that'll give you that value. Your x is 9 point, it says 365, so we'll say that's 9.4 if we're rounding to the nearest tenth. 21 says to approach the runway, a small plane must begin a 10-degree descent starting from a height of 1,533 feet above the ground. To the nearest tenth of a mile, how many miles from the runway is the airplane at the start of this approach? Okay, so we have a 10-degree descending angle right here, 1,533. We're going to treat it the same way. If this one's 10 degrees, then this angle right here makes up 90 degrees. That angle must be 80 degrees. So we use that as our reference point. So from 80 degrees, we know that we have 1,533, which is our adjacent, and we have x, which is our hypotenuse. So we need to use cosine again. So cosine of 80 degrees equals the adjacent, which is 1,533, over the hypotenuse x. So we got to cancel this out by multiplying by x. Do it here. X times the cosine of 80 equals 1,533. Divide by the cosine of 80. It'll cancel out. So 1,533 divided by the cosine of 80 degrees is 8,828. So at 8,828 feet is when it needs to start its approach.